Okay, I welcome you all with love, and I'm going to start with a little prayer, merging the heavens and earth. Hashem Yikukuru Shabrihu, Ushinate, Bi'ilu Imu Layad, Shemuki Bavavke, Biudah Shalom B'Shem Guzrael Kolam, Amen. So, this is our first experience here with our new format. We're going to take about a half hour for questions and answers, and I have the questions. And then we're going to do a world healing meditation, what I'm going to call activating God's firepower. So, let me start with the first question. And if there are there questions out there right now? Just I want to double check. Okay, so the question is a little, I'm going to condense it down. And it comes down to how to you be clear that you're not crazy if you aren't recognized at the level you think you deserve. And that's an interesting question, but it's really God's decision. If you look around, there are people just come out of the blue and suddenly they're, millions of followers. 18-year-old girl gets up and her song gets on Facebook or something like that, and suddenly she's got millions of followers. How did that happen? It's called destiny. So whether you get a lot of recognition or you get little recognition, it really doesn't, it's not really all about you. Now where it is about you, which is important to understand, is when you think it should be your way. And the key spiritual message here is, it's not my way, it's God's way. And whatever is my destiny that's laid out for me, to be at peace with it. So that's where we talk about understanding that our job in the spiritual life is to be at peace with the unfolding of our destiny. That's the key thing to understand. And then you don't worry about, is there recognition, is there not recognition, or I think it should be this way. So the key here from a spiritual point of view is aligning our will with God's will. And then that dissonance goes away. Okay. Any questions about that before we do the next one? Okay, that was a good question. I would love to hear more about the 5G effects on us and COVID. And what can I do to protect my family from 5G and COVID as well? Well, that's not a short question. That could take us a little bit of time. What I have observed, and I'm looking at the overall epidemiology around the world, is that when people are living in high 5G areas, there's a higher rate of mortality. Now and people are sicker. Now we know by itself 5G is associated with significantly increased amounts of heart disease, cancer, type 2 diabetes, mental problems, depression, anxiety, fears. Okay, that we know. That's independent. Okay? So it would stand to reason that the epidemiology, which says, okay, Germany, they don't have really 5G, and their mortality rate's about 2.27. And in Italy, in certain cities where they have really high 5G concentration, their mortality rate is closer to 15 to 16%. So how does that happen? Well, it happens because the 5G kind of deepens that. There's another problem with 5G, which I mentioned in my article on 5G, and you can go to my website and see it. It's drcousins.com. And that it's been proven that 5G disorganizes the oxygen molecules in a way that we can't really absorb oxygen as well into our hemoglobin. And so there's a kind of a slow suffocation that goes on. Now, it's even been mentioned they use it for crowd control. But in this case, what we're seeing is when we mix 5G with people who may have compromised lungs from a COVID-19 infection, that they actually can die from suffocation. So those are what people are actually seeing. And if you listen to the doctors in the emergency room, they're really saying, oh, but there's a problem. We don't understand what it is. It's as if people are suffocating. And even they're saying maybe even the respirators, some are feeling is actually the wrong treatment for people because it isn't so much the oxygen in the way that they're talking about. So that's how it affects it. It lowers our immune system. It makes it harder to absorb oxygen, which we need to make everything work right. And basically, theoretically, this isn't proven, that the process of electrophoresis is a place where the membranes of the cell mitochondria open and they let viral particles in, so the cells are more easy to to infect us. So that's kind of the overview to that, how it plays out. Now the next question is, well, how do we protect ourselves? It's an extremely good second part of the question. We can protect ourselves in a few ways. I'm actually working with David Wagner at TACAN Technologies, and I hope in our next newsletter, I don't hope, it's almost done, okay? In the next newsletter, we will be showing you ways to protect your house, your car, and yourself from 5G effects. Now, I'm exploring other things too, but right now that's the most promising. So I'm kind of excited about it. We're just a day or two before we got everything in order. Then that would be an important thing. That basically, what we see with the TACAN, all different levels. So the 5G can come in through the windows, but we use what we call alter discs, and we'll put them on the windows, and it actually changes everything. And you even see out of the window differently, but it helps protect 5G from entering. So there are some things we can do. I think in time we're going to find more things we can do. I'm exploring, as they say, some other avenues. You saw me working with what we call Earth Card, walking up to a 4G tower, and people not being affected if they have the card. Well, we're testing out another thing called the new advanced Earth Card, and hopefully we're very fortunate we don't have any 5G towers here in Patagonia, and so we're going to look for one and do the testing, and then we'll have that statement too. I like layers of defense. So we do have the technology, and hopefully in next week you will have it available to you. You'll see it on our website. It'll come out in our newsletter. Great question. Okay. Any comments about it? Okay. So the next question is, what are your thoughts on whether COVID-19 was created by humans, who and where, or by nature, where? Now, I'm not mentioning people's names, and I don't know if there's a need to, but generally I'm not going to unless people I get feedback that I'll mention people's names. So the issue with 5G, did it get created? Did it happen from some bat or some food market or whatever? About 4 days ago, China came out and actually said that it was a weaponized virus, and they said, and which is true, which in my earlier newsletters I said like 9 weeks ago, that it was a weaponized coronavirus, and initially the research was done at a bioweapons lab in North Carolina, at University of North Carolina in 2015. There's papers on it in what they call enhanced function and so forth. But at that time, that one of the heads of the Wuhan biological warfare was training with them, and the Chinese actually bought his training, but also brought back the virus and then continued to further weaponize it. And then universities in India and Greece and France and other places actually proved that it was a weaponized virus. It was literally, you can prove it if you really check out the gene sequences and so forth. So what we can say at this point, it was a weaponized virus. The Chinese have documented, which happens to be true, that the U.S. funded them to the tune of $3.7 million to kind of continue to do the research work and develop it. And it was under the NIH, Fauci, and also Obama. Okay, I don't like to name names, but people need to know there's kind of a not so pleasant games going on here. So that is basically what we know, and I think what we can well document at this point, and it's kind of hit the newspapers. I think even ABC, I'm not sure, but one of the main news lines had actually got hold of it. The information was released to the biggest newspaper in England from China. So there's games going on between the different power players, but it appears China and U.S. were both major players involved. Any questions about that? That's a pretty heavy statement, but I feel confident making it not only based on the earlier research, but based on there's a Dr. Francis, I can't think of his last name at the moment, Boyle, who was talking about this a while ago, and he's like a world expert on it, and he's the one that in 1989, okay, got laws passed in the U.S. and also in the UN to make bioweapon research illegal. There's 12 illegal bioweapons researches in the United States, with about 13,000 people working on them. And I love to see us begin to start shutting those down. This is not a winner, because invariably there's going to be a leak. And why do I say that? Because as far as I can tell, there was at least 10 leaks, according to Dr. Francis Boyle, from our own bioweapon laboratories. It's just very difficult. I don't care how good you are. If things happen. So what I want to say is just what I just said, is that it would be good if the whole world stopped producing bioweapons and supporting bioweapon laboratories. Okay. Coming in. Okay. So, next question. So what's the solution that will stop this hoax perpetuated by the New World Order and restore pursuit of life, peace, and happiness? Well, it's really, at one level, it's not a hoax. Okay, at one level, people are still dying from this, right? Now, how badly is it? That's where it stops, where it becomes the word hoax. I would call it psyop. Basically, the amount of people, as far as I can tell, in the world, total deaths in the world, is about the same. Basically, as I pointed out in my last newsletter, I think it was in 2018, about 61,000 people died of the flu. And what are they predicting now? About that much who is going to die. Okay, so wait, maybe it's really no different and we're being psyoped. The other thing is, according to the different research, but I'm looking at one research done in Stanford, where they kind of looked at one of the ships where people have been were quarantined, and really the rate of mortality was 0.65%, and most of these people were in their 60s and older. So that's probably the most, because we had a confined group of people to actually look at. So all this is going on. The research does say, yeah, people die for it. Maybe the same totals are the same after all the quote hoax, but psyop. So what's the problem? The problem is the psyop. The problem is the fear. If you think 61,000, that's a lot of people, right? And then we reflect back and say, oh my goodness, 550,000 people last year died of heart disease. Wait, 551,000, divide that by 60, what do you get, huh? It's like it's 9 times more. Now, that's something to consider. And people dying of stroke, thousands of people dying of stroke. So what's my point? My point is is what we're really looking at. Yes, people are dying of this. Yes, it can spread. Absolutely. Yes, we should take proper precautions. Really not a bad idea. But when we look at, we've had these flus, we've had SARS epidemic, which actually had a mortality rate of 10%. We have Ebola that had a mortality rate of 30%. Marburg virus, a mortality rate of 80%. And this is somewhere less than 1% mortality. So we have to kind of look at it and say, well, it's not a hoax, but it is a psyop. So what can we do? Which is the more important thing. Don't get taken in by it. Don't go into fear. Protect ourselves. What are the things we can do? Which is one of the questions. So prevention-wise, we want to build what we call the terrain, your immune system, your overall resistance to all disease. In other words, it's time to get healthier. How do we do that? Well, viruses don't like an alkaline environment. So good. Let's eat an alkaline diet. That makes sense, right? So what's that? A vegan, at least 80% live food diet. Okay, we got that. Exercise, really good. Okay? Good relationships, sacred relationships, really good. Today I did a somewhat humorous but fun breathing, explaining to people. Because by the time you're 70, if you aren't doing breathing exercise, also known as pranayama, and building the lung chi, or prana, people lose about 70%, 50% of their lung capacity. So please, do breathing exercises. So exercise, breathing, getting enough sleep. What do I mean? Well, we know that if people need about 7 hours sleep, and it's really good to get key between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., and that's going to build your immune system. It's going to build your serotonological system for your brain function, and it's going to build your endocrine system. That's a pretty good thing to do. So this is called building the terrain. Also, hydrating is good. These are accessible to everyone. Now we also have what I call my protocol. We know that vitamin D at around 2,000 units a day is going to decrease upper and lower respiratory infections by 40 to 50%. Well, my goodness, that's an easy one. Zinc, maybe 30 milligrams twice a day, has been shown to block viral replication. Notice they're not talking about these things in the overall media. But hey, zinc blocking viral replication, not a bad idea. So you got vitamin D. Now vitamin A, I recommend at least 25,000 a day. Why? Because it protects the upper lungs and upper nasal cavities. Okay, so we have zinc, and we have D, and we have vitamin C, which is very good, and we have vitamin A. And then one of the things I mentioned about 5G is it tends to imbalance the Schumann resonance and decrease melatonin secretion. What does that mean? Well, melatonin secretion is, when it's low, all the chronic diseases I was talking about get worse. And then a lot more chronic diseases are associated, which I'm not going to give you a whole list. It's enough to think type 2 diabetes and cancer and heart disease. Okay? So, fine. We are coming out, hopefully next week. I'll be, a taconized melatonin. Okay? So, that's easy. Take melatonin at night. And how much you need? Between 3 and 5 milligrams. It'll help you get to sleep, but it also replenishes your nervous system. Melatonin is a neuroendocrine substance. Hey, that's not so hard, so I'll just review it. We have zinc. We have D. We have A. And with D, there should be a little K, okay? We have melatonin. One other thing that I like a lot is silver. It's very, very effective. Colloidal silver, which it's available, which we sell. We obviously are stocking what I'm talking about. That's a no-brainer, right? And that's been known to kill over 625 different pathogens, including almost all viruses. And then, to me, one of the most potent is what I call Illumidine. Kind of my favorite there. And it pretty much kills, again, all the viruses we know. It's been used against SARS and been successful, and MERS, successful. People say, well, there's enough research in these things. Right, because we're just dealing with it. It just started a few months ago. Of course there isn't enough to prove it, but we have our prior experiences, like the hydroxychloroquine, which basically my whole family took chloroquine when we lived in India as an anti-malaria in the 70s, for a year. And I gave it to thousands of people. I never saw a side effect on it, okay? So it's really easy to say it's not definitively proven. Well, it isn't. But then again, how long did it take to prove smoking caused cancer? Oh, how about 30 years? So you're going to wait 30 years? I don't think so. We do know that this Dr. Zonkoff in Zelenko in New York City is using a protocol with the hydroxychloroquine and the zinc and a particular antibiotic, azithromycin. And nobody has died. Nobody's going to the hospital. And probably at this point he's over 800 people that he's seen. So I can say, fine, it's not definitively proven, but that's pretty good. We know in France, where they used it in a 6-day protocol, we know, hey, they had a 100% success rate compared to 12% in people that in the controls. So it's very, deliberately confusing to say something like, oh, it's not definitively proven. Well, it isn't, and it probably won't be for quite a long time. But doctors are getting results with these things, and that's really what we're talking about. And we're more concerned with saving life and preventing people from getting really sick to getting final results. I know when the stuff came out with cigarettes, not that I ever smoked cigarettes, but I didn't wait 30 years to tell people don't smoke. It may cause lung cancer and other cancers. I said don't smoke. It's very suggestible. That's what we're talking about. So we have a lot of these things in place. We have the aromatherapy work. Shanti, my wonderful consort wife, has developed Germs Be Gone. And we have Immortal Immune to support the immune system. And aromatherapy has been used for literally since the Middle Ages. When they had the bubonic plague, they were using the aromatherapy to kind of protect themselves. Okay? And there's, as I said, those I gave you the main supplements. And we know that when people are in relationship or working together in groups, we know that people live longer and are healthier and have at least half the amount of depression. We know that depression lowers your immune system. We're making a real effort with this Thursday meeting. We're, talking about creating what we call a Tree of Life online community. Going to be having a meditation, like we did a 2-day meditation retreat, obviously online, in the early part of May. So, we're doing the best we can to build that connection for people, because I know that's really healing. I know it's really healing in the long term. But in the short term, that's what we have. That's all we can do. So we've kind of changed everything a lot around so that we could, meet the needs of the public. And I'm interested. I gave a little, what I call my humorous pranayama thing today. And, there's people from all over the world, countries I actually hadn't heard of, writing in, thank you, that was really useful and helpful. It's like, oh, okay, that's cool. So the point I'm making is we are building community, and I think it's really important to have that positive attitude. It's like, oh my goodness, let's use it to our advantage. Let's use this as a giant red pill. You've ever heard the Matrix? It's called take the red pill and wake up. More people are waking up. That this is a psyop. People are, being taken advantage of in a variety of ways. Yes, people die, but people always are dying, and when somebody like Fauci, Dr. Fauci says, oh, we have to keep the lockdown until no one dies. Sure, show me a world where no one dies, ever. It's ridiculous. So don't go for the psyop. Know you can protect yourself and, minimize your exposure in the general environment. But don't live in fear. And from a deeper spiritual perspective, which is what matters, is there is no death for the self. Our soul is immortal. So, yeah, the body can die, but the fact is our soul is immortal. So, whether you like it or not, your soul will be sticking around, and it will continue to evolve, okay? And so there's nothing to be afraid of. Pay attention, be cautious, like what the Sufis say, love everybody, trust everybody, and also tie up your camel. So those are the kinds of things that we need to keep in mind. And then we have that attitude, we do the right proper things, but when we do that and we know our soul is immortal, and then there's nothing to worry about and nothing to fear. We've done the right thing. We let go knowing whatever my destiny is, that's fine. And that's really how we started the question, didn't we? Hey, am I crazy to think I'm not getting this enough recognition? Don't worry about it. It's God's problem. It's not your problem. It's like you will get that recognition according to your destiny, but just keep with it and do it for the sake of the inner joy. Do it for the sake of the self. And that's what all this is about. This is one big spiritual test. Okay, we talked red pill, but think big picture. This is one big spiritual test to help us really take a giant step in waking up and liberating the whole planet. So I'm going to end with that. There are more questions, but I think unless there's any pressing question out there, okay, good. I have still more list, and next week we'll be back again asking questions. Now, the final thing, when we go with, it was a perfect question, right? What do we do to end this psyop of the New World Order? It's called spiritual firepower. And we know that when people meditate together, we create a field that literally alters the global brain or global mind. So I'm going to lead you through a 20-minute meditation, a guided meditation, and I'll just give you a hint what we're doing. As the cosmic energy is coming down, it fills our hearts with love and the firepower of God that burns up all viruses and all pathogens, and we then spread it throughout our body, and then really covers the planet, but really the whole solar system. First, we're going to start with what we call Shaktipat. I'm going to look here and just feel the energy coming from my eyes, and then we're going to go into meditation. And then afterwards, we'll have a little time for questions and answers about the meditation. And here we go. We'll go in with a Yod, the first letter out of nothing. Yo. And just look at the picture. Look at me there. Feel the energy. Okay, let's go into meditation. Just close your eyes. Take a minute or two, but we'll be going for 20 minutes. Josh, you'll time it. Okay. For those who aren't trained in meditation, just a simple little technique to help you. Breathe in, Yod up to the heart from the base, up to your heart, and Hey out to your heart, and then Wah from the base to your third eye, and Hey out to your heart, merging the heart and the mind. Yod, and then Hey, Wah, and then Hey. Just keep repeating it until your mind is quiet. When your mind is quiet, you can let go of using the mantra. Okay, and slowly feel that divine energy of God coming down into our hearts. As we inhale, let our whole body be filled with it. And now exhale again, filling your whole body, but now letting that flaming fire of God begin to spread out throughout the planet, burning up all forms of darkness, filling the planet with light, letting the light dispel the darkness. And now see the whole planet surrounded in light. And exhale again, and now see that light extending out into the whole solar system. And feel that power of God as it's amplified through all the forces of God, off planet and on planet. Feel it spreading. So much light, so much love. And feel the planet as a resonating ball of light and love. And as this is happening, although we initially felt that energy from God, if you're so inclined, let your prayer to God be that the God force is amplifying all the energies and creating a miracle of transformation on this planet. Okay. Slowly come out of meditation. And as you're coming out, before we have a little sharing, I'd like to share what I believe is a true story with you. This is the 8th day of Passover, and this is an event that happened on the first day of Passover, about 400 years after the time of the flood. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the Assyrians under Sennacherib. And they had already conquered northern Israel and taken people away in captivity. They had already captured most of southern Israel, and they were surrounding Jerusalem. And they had 185,000 troops, which today is probably equivalent of 4 million soldiers. And every day, as they're surrounding it, they had a huge psyop going, "We're going to capture you, we're going to destroy you, surrender, and you won't be killed." And, and they were yelling and screaming, and it was just continual. It's just part of the psyop. They didn't have the internet, right? They just were yelling at the people, the soldiers who had surrounded the city. And King Hezekiah, who was a very, very virtuous king, kept telling people, have faith in God. And Isaiah came and prophesied, and people were kind of making fun of him. They sent the representatives, the Assyrians. "There's no way you can win. You're finished. No chance. You are totally out of your league. It's total firepower, way beyond you." I mean, literally, that's what the message was. Hezekiah told people, keep the faith. And first day of Passover, because it's very symbolic, a day of liberation, when people woke up in the morning, there was silence. What's the silence about? What's going on here? And they looked out over the walls, and there were 185,000 Assyrian soldiers who had died of some mysterious plague. This is called a miracle, equivalent to the miracle of Exodus and the splitting of the Sea of Reeds, which actually happened on day 7, yesterday. Okay? And so this miracle happened. Now, obviously it has a lot to do with us, because there's a sense of that there's this overwhelming force. Like, what are we doing with all this 5G and all these forces? But what we just did, and what we're going to continue to do, is keep the prayer open, keep the firepower of the divine open, and understand that we are all vehicles for channeling the divine force onto the planet. That's our job. The rest, it's up to God. Overwhelming situation, and maybe it will take a miracle. But this is a second miracle, right? First was Exodus, and now maybe we're looking for a third miracle. And at different levels, different groups off planet, are bringing light on, but the message has been, at least to me, you folks have to do your work. You have to, to create the space for this light to happen, and we're going to amplify the light. So that's the good news. Miracles happen. God is with us, and it's up to us to amplify it. So I thank everybody for their good work. And if there's any sharing anyone has, we have a minute for 1 or 2 sharings that people may have.
floor. Says I saw everyone there in the meditation room.
Okay, good. Nice. Okay, so I want to thank all of you for taking the time and energy to create this firepower of God, to be a vehicle for it. Share it with your friends. I believe this will be available. Is that correct?
On YouTube.
It will be available on YouTube, SoundCloud. And we'll gather again next Thursday at 6 for questions and answers. I may finish the rest of the questions here, but questions and answers. And then do another firepower meditation. So peace be with you. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Takiwasan. Amen.